Good morning, welcome to the It's All Brief to Me blog tour. I'm Dr. Paul Kiritsis and this is blog number 36. Today we're going to be talking about the alchemical opus. To understand the motivation behind alchemy, we must travel back to about the 2nd century CE, a time when the pseudepigraphical writings aimed at nurturing a philosophical and theosophical coherence of the world were ripe. The majority of these syncretized Gnostic, Stoic, Platonic and Aristotelian elements and were attributed to such historically unverifiable figures as the thrice greatest Hermes Trismegistus and Moses, deities like Isis, Horus, and Agathodaimon, and legendary figures like Ostones, Pamenes, and Cleopatra. The most pivotal to our study is the opening text of the Corpus Hermeticum, a tractate entitled Poemander. In it, an anonymous author lays bare the conviction that the essence of microcosm and macrocosm of the human being and the cosmos as a whole are made comprehensible only through revelation or mystical insight. The Gnostic system of thought attributes the creation of the universe to the interaction of two principles, pure spirit, otherwise known as God, and matter. The former is fiery and active, the latter reflective and passive. According to the frame narrative, the process of becoming was mediated by two sentient beings that differentiated from the virginal spiritual noetic substance. First was the demiurgic spirit, or nous, which proceeded to order the fixed sphere of the stars, the 7 planetary spheres, with their respective daemons, and the sublunary realm. This was followed by a disembodied proto-human who recapitulated the entire order on a much smaller scale. Evident thus far should be a welcome departure from conventional renditions of creation, such as the ones we might read in biblical Genesis, or the Sumerian account of Uligara and Zalgara. The disembodied proto-human, the ethereal model of man, in other words, wasn't subordinate to God. He was one with God, God's sibling or brother, if you want. Unencumbered by the density of incarnation, ethereal man was loved by God as his own child and bestowed of all the honors and privileges that went with such a favorable sentiment. He was omnipotent, transcendent, and immortal, with demiurgic powers of cogitation that made him the envy of the celestial and earthly beasts. In the end, it was his own curiosity that rendered him impotent. Wishing to examine the created essence of matter more closely, he descended along the multidimensional rungs of the cosmic scale until he reached the last realm, the sublunary. Here he peered upon the supernal face of Mother Nature and became enamored of her. She reciprocated these feelings and, acting upon her own lower and involuntary impulses, pulled him across to her side. The consequential act transformed him into an entirely composite being. His newfound corporeality imposed a condition of mortality, yet his soul spark derived from the Empyrean, the ethereal fire of heaven, and remained immortal. He was also hermaphroditic in nature, consisting of both male and female parts. A 2nd century non-Christian text from the Nag Hammadi library entitled The Apocalypse of Adam expounds this aspect through an expository narrative between Adam, the first human being, and his son Seth. In the story, Adam equates the condition of paradisal perfection and knowledge of original gnosis with a hermaphroditic constitution, revealing that the fall only occurred after the enraged god Yaldabaoth, the ruler of the aeons and the powers, divided the corporeal androgynous proto-human into male and female. Alchemy appropriates this Gnostic viewpoint and ascribes salvation to the reintegration of the feminine and masculine powers within oneself. The purpose, then, of anyone who awakens to this higher call is to reascend the 7 planetary spheres, fragmenting, as it were, the anatomy of his or her soul and giving back parts to the respective daemons, to reconcile the integral Adamic state of Euroboric wholeness, and finally to commune with and become one with the Godhead in the 8th. The Empyrean. A pictorial representation of this idea is immortalized in the opening plate of the Mudus Liber, where 2 angels trample up and down a Jacob's ladder and blow into their trumpets in an attempt to awaken a sleeping figure at the bottom. And that's this plate over here. There we go. We can see the angels descending and blowing into the trumpet and The sleeping figure is there. From this perspective, the alembic, or the vessel, is the human body, and the philosopher's stone is consciousness purified of its physical drives and carnal desires through a repeated cycle of conjunctions, or chemical marriages, if you like, between the masculine and the feminine powers, which alchemy represents as soul and lunar. Just as you might experience reality through the mediation of your 5 physical senses, so too does alchemical esotericism strive to comprehend the psychonoetic realm through elements, properties, and organic processes manifest in the material world. The idea is embodied in the Hermetic tenet as above, so below, which might be taken to mean that everything existing in the material plane is a flawed variety of an ideal equivalent on the next whirl of the cosmic spiral. Think Platonic metaphysics. Similarly, as inner, so outer, expresses a fundamental correspondence between the laws of macrocosm and microcosm, or the demiurgic spirit and the ethereal proto-human, if you prefer. An attempt to validate these laws prompted the early alchemists to seek out and identify a material constituent for the materia prima, the protean, volatile, ever-vacillating and elusive base substance of which the cosmos and the human soul has been hewn. 2 that seemed to fit the mold were water and mercury. The first was soon excused on the premise that it was way too abundant in nature to encompass the quintessence of an immutable substance which had not partaken in the irrational eruptions of creation. Furthermore, it had already been implicated as one of the first 4 qualities or principles to differentiate from the primordial chaos by both Empedocles and also Aristotle. This left Mercury as the sole candidate, whilst alchemists of all ages have emphatically claimed that their Mercury is not the Mercury of the vulgar herd. We can be more than certain that the latter's miraculous and mutative properties is definitely what inspired it.